Good morning, everybody, and welcome back again to our time together in this venue, in this avenue, in this way that we have in front of us. Hey, I have some announcements I'll be sharing later in the week, some thank yous to be sharing later in the week, but I didn't want to take the time to do all that right now because it could take a little bit. There's been some things going on that you guys have contributed to and some things to talk about as we look down the road to where things may be headed. So look this week in your email and online for some announcements that may be coming. Today, as we get started, I'm just going to ask you to do what I did at the very beginning when we first started doing this and ask you to push pause a minute and pray. Pray again that God would speak to you, the Holy Spirit would let you hear what you need to hear, and that this would be a powerful moment that we have together again today. In May of 2015, our family planned what we wanted to be just a fun-filled trip to Disneyland, and then some driving and some time in Portland, Oregon. We were planning on taking that trip to Disneyland with our kids, and it was back in a time when they were cute and wanted to do things like that. And so we look forward to that time, as many parents do, being able to probably take their kids to Disneyland. And so we were planning that, which would then include just a scenic drive up Highway 1 through California in a car that we would rent, some time hopefully on that scenic drive, stopping in a small coastal town, getting some ice cream together, having a picnic somewhere out there along the way, then eventually getting to drive through the Redwood National Forest and see the big trees and everything that was there, and just a time that we could just relax for a day and drive along the coast, and then eventually end up the next day traveling up into Portland, Oregon, and spending another week with family. It was about I think a 2-week vacation or so, but it was just something that we wanted to do with our family, create memories, have a great time, relax, enjoy something that we don't always get to see, you know, in this area with the ocean and everything that comes with it. And so we took off, like I said, in May of 2015, probably, I don't know the exact date, but I would guess like a lot of them, over Memorial Day weekend around Caden's birthday and whatnot, and had a great time as that began. We flew in, I believe, to LA at one of the airports there, and got in there. We stayed at a little place near the Disneyland Resort, and I remember getting to have kind of a buffet meal that night together as a family, and already kicking off the trip, just going, this is going to be pretty neat. This is going to be a pretty special time together. And then we spent 2 days at Disneyland, or 1 day Disneyland and 1 day at the California Adventure Park right next to it. And I still have some vivid memories of that time together. It was one of those that I'll look back on for a long time, and I'm glad that we did it. And it was a very special time, at least in my mind, for our family together to be able to do that. And so it was good. And we got to the couple days at Disneyland, and then we got to the day where it was time to take the drive through the scenic route up Highway 1. And we got up early in the morning to go get our rental car, because it was going to be a long day of driving to get to where we wanted to go. There was a lot of miles and a lot of hours to put in to do it. And we got to, I don't remember how we used it. I don't know if they had Uber, if we got on that at that time or what, but somehow we got some public transportation, got us to our rental car place. And the day was starting out beautifully, because we got there and the car that we had planned on getting, they said wasn't available. So we got an actual upgrade in our car. We got a really nice car that we're going to get to keep now for a week to make this drive and to drive around while we're in Portland. So we were pretty excited, and this trip was just continuing to be better and better as we went along. And then we started the drive, and we, like I said, started early in the morning, but I don't know how many of you know, but in the LA area, rush hour apparently is going on all the time. I mean, like I said, it was early in the morning because we had a long time to go, but even that early in the morning, oh my goodness, all the lanes, all 15 lanes, it felt like. Actually, I think it was just 5, but all the lanes were just full and cars were coming at you like crazy. And it didn't take long to just go, oh my goodness, we've got to pay attention, and to try and figure out where we're going and dodge what was coming at you at the same time. It was hectic. And in that, because of all that stuff coming at us and all the cars and just everything going on, we ended up missing our turn that would take us, or our exit or whatever it was that would take us to Highway 1. It wasn't just that, it was also my lack of really good planning and actually mapping the thing out, assuming the GPS would let me know in time and we'd be able to figure this out, and not actually preparing the trip. But between those two things, we missed our turn. And we realized something didn't seem right, so we did kind of turn around. We found a place where we can get off this off-ramp and take a little drive and get back on and go the other way. But we didn't stop and figure out where we were really going. We just kind of turned around and started going back again. And before we knew it, we were in the same position again. And next thing we knew, we were far from where we needed to be in order to get on Highway 1 and take that drive. And it came to a point where we found ourselves actually on I-5, which is far from the coast. It's more inland in California, and it's, in my opinion, not near as pretty of a drive, but we found ourselves driving I-5 instead of Highway 1. And we drove up that, and we just kept looking for a place where it would turn and would take us back to the highway so we could get onto that coastal route, and we could have our dream of driving along the coast and getting that ice cream in that town and having that picnic together. And we kept looking for it, and we kept looking for it. And eventually, Leanne found something where she found a map that came to where it pointed out to us we weren't going to find what we were looking for. Not until we got close to San Francisco. And so we ended up spending the majority of our day not driving up the coast as we'd imagined, but just driving up regular old California all the way up to where we could finally get to where we turn over into the San Francisco area. Now, the one positive is we did end up getting to have lunch at In-N-Out Burger with our aunt, but it was a good time. But the dream and the hopes and the intentions and the plans that we had, it was getting missed. And we didn't get to the San Francisco area until close to rush hour again. So we found ourselves, as we're trying to get back and to salvage this little bit of what we were hoping to do, driving very slow through San Francisco. Driving by houses that, pretty sure at the moment Morgan was into watching the Full House show, and I think we saw the Full House like 12 times in her mind, but we're driving slow enough that we could look and really try and figure it out. We got to go over the Golden State Bridge, but very slowly going over it. And we spent a lot of time in that area, slowly going through it. And finally, after we got on the other side of the Golden State Bridge, there was a chance to go down and to finally get a little bit of that highway, a little bit of that experience. But by the time we got there and we weaved our way down the path that was going to get us down to it, which was a lot of twists and turns, instead of having a group that was excited to be able to do this at least a little bit, I had 2 car-sick passengers that didn't even want to look up at some of the wildlife that was beside us as we were driving down there. And eventually we started to realize too that we were starting to get low on fuel, and we were starting to get hungry. And so now we're in a place where we were really confused where we were, but we found a little coastal town, and we pulled in there to get some gas, to go to the bathroom, to eat. And what we found was a town that seemed to be just pretty much shut down for the evening, but there was some weird tribal sounding music going off in the distance. And it was not a place that we realized we wanted to be very long. We went through trying to find the bathroom that we could find near the gas station that wasn't open. And by that point we were hungry. We quickly scarfed down our meal out of the trunk of our car because we wanted to do it before the creators of that tribal music found out we were there. In our mind, we actually told our kids, hey, call everybody you know, because if they never see us again, this is where we last were. I mean, it was just a weird experience by that point. And we got done and we got back on the road again, eventually found a place where we could get gas. And we did get our ice cream out of McDonald's somewhere along the highway because we still wanted that. And then eventually we got to the Redwood National Park in the dark. And by the time we got there and the time I was really looking forward to with my family, they were sleeping and I was stressed because what would be an enjoyable drive through the park in the daytime is a very stressful time in the dark with trees on both sides of you and continuous signs telling you to watch out for the wildlife that could jump out in front of you anytime. And by the time we got there, it was late. I was tired. I was cranky. They were sleeping. We made it through, and eventually in a little northern California town, we got to our hotel that night for a few hours of sleep. And by the time we got done with that, it was not a trip that everybody goes, that was great. I'm so glad we did that. What happened instead was the next morning when we got in the vehicle, all that I got was a request, which was actually probably a little more than a plea of can we please just get on the interstate and get to Portland today? Because the enjoyment of the trip, the dreams, the hopes, all that, it was gone. Did it create a memory? It did. I still remember it today because of just how it actually went down. And I'm telling you, I did not describe all the details of it, but it wasn't the memory and the trip we were hoping to have. But it came to a point where we didn't get to have the experience that we wanted to have. I mean, I had a dream. I had good intentions. I had a desire of some. I even, on this trip to have all this, I had a nice car. I had a great family. It was a beautiful day and all of that. But no matter my intentions and all these things that we had with this, we didn't get to experience it all because really of one thing. I missed the turn and I got on the wrong road that took me in a whole different direction and eventually on a whole different experience. And you're probably hearing that, you're probably going, well, yeah, duh, that's what happens. If you want to actually experience certain places and go to certain places and experience certain things in those places, you've got to be on the road that takes you there. I'm sure it's going through your head going, well, that makes sense. That's why you missed it. You were not on the road that would have allowed you those experiences. And you know what? You're right. But here would be my question to you, because I agree. We understand this in that situation. But if we understand this, then I would ask, then why don't we think this is the way with all the journeys we want to travel and all the destinations we desire to arrive at in our lives? It's so obvious in moments like that, but we tend to forget that in any journey, in anything that we want to experience, in any destination we want to arrive at, one of the most important things that we have to remember is that there's a certain road that will take us there. It doesn't necessarily matter what our intentions and our dreams and our aspirations and our hopes are. If we're on the wrong road to get to that, then we're not going to experience it. And that includes, like I said, with any journey we're on in our life, whether it would be our mental journey, our physical journey, our financial journey, our emotional journey, even our spiritual journey. I think in many of these areas, we have some hopes and dreams. I mean, at least a few, if not much more. We have great intentions and great desires. We have things that we would like to do and things that we would like to see happen. But for whatever reason, it seems as though we get on a road that's not going to actually take us through those experiences and to that destination, and we just keep going. We tend to, though it seems so obvious in experiences like what I had, we tend to, in many of these other experiences, forget the simple principle that's expressed through the words of Andy Stanley, that direction, not intention, is what determines our destination. The truth is, if we're going to desire a certain experience and a certain outcome for a certain area of our lives, what we need to focus on, maybe as much or more than anything, is setting the direction that we want to go and then staying on the road that will lead us there. James Clear is the author of a great book. I would encourage it for anybody to read, called Atomic Habits. He calls this developing systems, which are about the processes that lead to those results. And we get it, we understand it, and we try to do it in certain areas. If we want to develop a healthy financial system or get to a healthy financial destination and have healthy financial experiences, we know that we need to develop a system. Those that are not experiencing that are not traveling a road that would allow them to. But those that know that they need to work hard to earn an income, that need to develop a budget, that probably would help to find a financial guru or at least read from one, that would cut some spending in some areas and spend on other things, know that they're on a road that will lead them to experience what they want to experience. Those that want to get healthy know that they've got to get on a road that includes probably a little more water, a little more apples, a little more exercise, and a little less pop or beer and Skittles and TV. Right now we're going through this with our kids, trying to fight the corona weight thing, and it's so easy to just, in many ways, just not eat well and to be drinking a bunch of pop and doing all this, and we've had this conversation where we tell them, I know right now your metabolism's high. You don't think it affects you, but I promise you, if you stay on this road, it will come back to bite you. And you guys, a lot of you probably would agree with me and go, yeah, I know, because it's the road that we're on that leads to the destination we're going to get to. Those that are in athletics have probably heard at one point or another, had a coach quote to them or a parent or somebody the words of Ronald Reagan when he addressed the 1984 United States Olympic team, where he told them that you, above all people, know that it's not just the will to win that counts, but the will to prepare to win. In so many areas of our lives, we understand that in order to have the experiences we want and get to the destination that we want to get to, we've got to get on a road that's going to take us there. And if we miss the turn and get on the wrong road, it's not going to happen. We know that. Actually, let me take that back. We don't always know that for our own lives. We know that when we see it in other people's lives. When we see other people not arriving at a destination they want to arrive at, we know it's because they're not on a road that would get them there. We tend to forget it in our own, but deep down, we do understand that it's the principle of it all. That's what happens. And the reason that I bring this up today, I know that in some ways I may sound like I've oversimplified this, but the reason I bring this up today is to continue on with what we talked about last week and even a little bit the week before. It's because the same principle holds true as we continue to walk in this new normal that we've talked about and to experience the real, true, genuine life that Jesus offered to us and eventually walk into that eternal life with him forever. The same principle holds true. In order to experience these opportunities he's created for us, we're going to have to get on a road that will take us there. We can't just hope and desire and dream and want to have these experiences and want to live in that. There's actually going to be a road that we're going to need to take to get there. We've talked about living a life worthy of the calling we've received, and we can talk about it until we're blue in the face, but if we don't get on a road that's going to take us there, we won't get to experience living that. It's going to be more than just wanting to. It's going to be more than just dreaming about it. It's going to be more than just having the best of intentions or even learning how to do it. In order to experience these opportunities that he presented for us, it's going to, number one, do what we talked about last week, which is going to include needing to count the cost, but it's counting the cost of traveling the road that will take us where we're hoping to go. By the way, we talked about that counting the cost last week, and when we talk about counting the cost, there isn't just the actual cost that we're counting, there's also the opportunity cost. When we count the cost, he's saying, look at both. Don't just look at what it's going to cost you to do this, but look at what you're going to gain at the same time. But in order to experience it, we'll have to count that cost and understand what it means to travel on that road. But then we're going to have to get on that road that's going to take us there. If we think that we can travel another road and get there, we're just fooling ourselves. And if you don't believe me, if you think I'm full of it, then argue with Jesus. Because he is the one himself who shared these words. You find him in Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 13. This is a whole section when he's speaking to him on that, what they call the Sermon on the Mount. But these just few sentences here carry so much. In the midst of all this, he says, enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Did you hear that? Wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life. This word life, the actual definition of that word life is the absolute fullness of life, both essential and ethical, which belongs to God. It's life real and genuine, a life active and vigorous, devoted to God, blessed, and eventually to last forever. When we read that, I think so often we think we're just saying, hey, enter through that narrow gate into eternal life. He's saying, no, if you want to experience the life that I have for you, even now, which by the way, eternal life begins now. We just start it now and then walk into it for eternity with him. But if you want to experience this, he says, narrow is the road that few of them find, but there is a road, so get on it. And when you get on it, it's the road to life, to experience those experiences that we want to have with him now, those things that he's provided for us now, and then eventually get to celebrate him with them for all of eternity. He's saying, find that narrow road. Jesus understood that this principle, like his Father before him did, and put it in front of people over and over and over throughout the Old Testament, he understood this principle that holds true in life also holds true in our life with him as we seek to experience what he has to offer us, that we celebrated a few weeks ago on that Easter Sunday. So, as we walk in this new opportunity given to us by Jesus, as we dream and have the intentions of living a life worthy, as we look forward to eventually walking into this life with him forever, there's a way, there's a direction, there is a road for us to travel that will lead us through all these experiences and into this destination. And I felt like for a couple weeks, I need to remind us of this. It's just one of those obvious things that maybe sometimes becomes so obvious that we just forget about it. Now, obviously, we can have a long talk about this. There's many things that we can bring up, and in fact, I hope to stay on it a little bit as we move forward. But there's a lot of things that we can talk about to help us to get on this road and stay on it. There's probably some questions that we may have that we need to have answered. And I understand this because due to my own personality and my own tendencies and my own strengths, this can be a real struggle for me. According to the Clifton Strengths Assessment, one of my top 5 strengths is adaptability, which means I have the ability to go with the flow, but it can also turn into a problem because it can turn into a tendency to just go where the flow takes me. And then before I know it, I'm on a wrong turn, or I've missed a turn again, and I'm on the wrong road to be where I really need to be for whatever it is. And so I understand that there's a lot more to this than what we can give in just this little time that we have together. And so for today, with the obvious risk of oversimplifying it, I just felt like there were a few things that I wanted to do. And number one was to bring up the reminder that in order in anything in life to get to where we want to go and experience what we want to experience, we got to get on a road that takes us there. The same holds true for our walk with Jesus. If we want to experience what he has for us to experience, and experience our final destination of wherever it is that's going to take us, there's a road that will take us there, and we've got to get on it. And then I want us just to ask that question, what is that road that will lead us there? What is the road that we are supposed to be on that will help us get to that place? And then I'll have one more question just as we close it up today. So I've done the reminder, I've reminded us that, hey, the principle's there. But before we're done, we do need to ask that question, what is this road that we need to be on? And the answer is pretty simple. We like to read a lot of books, and we like to look for a lot of different advice from people on how to get on the right road. But the answer to this road of experiencing what he has for us is very simple. It's the road that comes from him and points us to him and helps us follow him. It's the one that he talks about when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's the road that we travel down where we actually hear those words and we take them seriously to the point that we obey them and that we actually follow him. The road that he's talking about here that helps us experience this is the one where we actually look at him, listen to him, and believe him to the point that we obey him. Again, he talks about it right here in this section. When he starts talking about the road, he's actually starting a new section of his teaching. And I encourage you to go back and read it all together. It's hard when they always put these little titles above each little section. Mine says it starts with the narrow and wide gates, and then it talks about the true and false prophets and the true and false disciples. And that's what he does, because he says, hey, there's a wide road, there's a narrow road, and you're going to come across people who are false prophets. You're going to come across those who are false disciples. And if you're listening to them, you're going to end up on that wide road. But then he finishes up by saying, with all this in mind, here's what you need to do to help you be on that road. He says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. So he's using his building background, his carpentry background, and using the same principle, but he's saying the road to where you want to be and to experience what you want to experience is the one where you hear what I'm saying and you actually put them into practice. The road that takes you away from that, the wide one, is the one where you actually hear what I'm saying, but you don't put them into practice. You don't actually believe me in every area of your life. It's really that simple. That is the road for us to be on, to experience what he has for us, the new normal, the opportunity to live a life worthy of the calling we've received. It's the one where we see him and we hear him and we believe him to a point that we actually obey him. On that road, we're going to experience this life like we can't even imagine. If we're not on that road, it's pretty simple. We won't. We'll experience something. We'll experience good moments and we'll experience neat things happen, but we're not going to experience what he actually has provided for us. Now, before we're done, I do want to say, for those that are on the wrong road, if they hear this and they go, yeah, man, I get that, but I'm not on the right road and I know it, I want to encourage you, now that you know it, to turn around, find the exit, and then get back on the road that will take you where you want to go. Andy Stanley says, there is no fix for being lost. To get from where we don't want to be to where we do want to be requires two things: time and a change of direction. There isn't a quick fix. In my California driving experience, it would have been pretty dumb. It would have pretty been inefficient use of our time to try and turn around once we realized that there was no other way to get over there. It would have been pretty inefficient and dumb to turn around and go all the way back and to try and get back onto the right route and on the right road to experience all that we were hoping to experience that day of driving down Highway 1. That would have been dumb and inefficient. But that's where the analogy breaks down, because and where the walk with Jesus is so much better. Because with him, it's the smart move to make. And our walk with him, it's not dumb and inefficient to not stop and turn around and get on the right road. We may not get back what we've missed in those experiences from the past, but when we stop and turn around and go back and get on the right road because of his new mercies that he gives us every morning, we still have great opportunities for the future. So if you're hearing this and you're going, yeah, I'm not on the right road, if you're being honest enough with yourself to go, no wonder I don't feel like I'm truly experiencing what I keep hearing I can experience, stop. Get off the off-ramp. Go back to him, look at him, listen to him, hear what he's saying, and then believe him. And do what he says, and get on that right road. You'll get to experience it. I believe him. I trust him. We'll get to experience what he provided for us to experience. And maybe today you're hearing this, and you know you're on the wrong road, and you say, it doesn't matter, I don't care. This principle applies to everybody else, but it doesn't really apply to me. I'm going to be okay. Then I want to encourage you to wrestle with these words from Paul, who again said in a little different way, but it's the same principle. I want you to just hear these words, and with you and God, wrestle with them. You talk to him about it. Paul says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, or in other words, goes down that other road, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, or gets on the narrow road to life, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. That's in Galatians 6, 7, and 8. In Romans, he says something similar. He says, those who live according to the flesh have their mind set on what the flesh desires, but those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. The mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. And those who are in the realm of the flesh cannot please God. So if we're sitting there going, this doesn't apply to me, I can do what I want to do, and I can continue down whatever road I want, and I'll have these experiences, wrestle with these words, because Paul says, no, it can't. Go back to Jesus' words. It says, hey, those that get on that broad road, it leads to destruction. Wrestle with those. Because no matter how smart, no matter how cute, no matter how good our IQ, no matter how gifted we may be, no matter how wealthy we may be, no matter how successful we may be in whatever, the principle holds true. If we're on the wrong road, we're not going to experience what we want to experience. But if we're on the right one, we can. And so it doesn't matter all these other things about us when it comes to experiencing this new normal that he gave us the opportunity to experience. When it comes to wanting to live a life worthy of the calling we've received, all these other things, kind of like having a nice car for the drive and a great family and a beautiful day, they don't matter. If we're on the wrong road, we're going to miss it. So I would argue back and say, yeah, this principle does apply to you. You can choose not to follow it. That's fine. That's your decision. But don't pretend like it doesn't apply. Wrestle with these words. Now, like I said, I share this today because I was already planning on it, but the real reason why it's just even more the last couple days, it's been more important to me. I got a greater urgency to want to share it after our governor shared the plan to open back up the state, because honestly, I was disappointed to see what's still in front of us as we move forward. If you've talked to me at all, you know, again, that I want to do this. I want to have these talks with everybody together. I knew that it probably wasn't going to happen, but to just see it and to hear it and to have it laid out in front of us, it was disappointing and it was hard. I'm glad there's actual dates and there's plans out there, but it was hard to think about having another month or so of living like this. But as I thought about it, what bothered me maybe even more, and the thing that made me even more sad, was thinking about the fact that we had this in front of us, this time put upon us, and not walking out of it any different. Craig Rochelle this week, I was on a call, a global leadership group, and they had a special thing for anybody that wanted to get on there, and actually it was just a Zoom thing of all these really well-known professional guys sharing their thoughts, and Craig Rochelle was one of them, and he made this quote somewhere along the lines that says, he said, as we move forward, I don't want to get back to normal. I want it to be better than normal. Our own Craig McGuire, kind of touched on this week with his video. And I came to that conclusion that in all this time, if we're done, if we haven't stopped, and as I mentioned at the very, very beginning, actually grown through this, as we move back into society and into our routine, I'm afraid it would be a major disservice to ourselves if we don't at least take a little bit of time to stop and think about what road we've been on, consider what road we want to be on, and figure out how to get onto the road that we want to be on. when this all started, our calendars opened up. There was a lot of empty space, but the truth is many of us have already created more space or took away that space on our calendars again. When what we need to be doing is leaving space to contemplate what road we're on. The goal is not to get back to the same normal road we were on before. That shouldn't be it. It's to get us on a better one that will lead us to where we really want to be. And so I felt more of an urgency to want to share this today and just to ask you, what road are you on? Because if we get back on the same road that we were on when this started, and I don't mean as a country and as a town and a society, I mean even individually, each of us, especially those of us who say we're followers of Jesus and we want to live a life worthy and we want to live in this new normal. If we get back on that same road that wasn't leading us down that, did we miss something during this time? Did we miss an opportunity to stop and get off the off-ramp and get back on the road that we need to be on? So I'm going to have this list of questions as we've been having. And I encourage you when this is done to push pause and look through that and think through it. But please understand that just like anywhere else in life, as we move forward in our walk with Jesus, it is our direction, the road that we're on, not our intentions and our dreams and our desires and our hopes that are going to lead us to our destination. And so we need to stop and say, what road am I on? And then say, God, if we want to be on that road and we know we're not there, God, help me. Guide me. Show me where to turn off. Show me where to get back on. And let's start this journey again. Let's go from here. Would you do that this month? We've got at least a month not together, so would you do that this month? Think about what road you're on. Think about what road you want to be on. And ask God to help all of that come together so that when we're back to whatever's going to be normal, it won't be the normal we're in. It'll be better than the normal because we're experiencing the new normal with Him and the new life, full life that He promised to us. Would you pray with me? God, I do just pray again that, number one, you would just help us continue each day to walk through this weird time that we're in. Keeping our eyes on you, focused on you, trusting you, not getting caught up in all the other noise that's going on and all the fear and everything else, but knowing that you are still there. And putting our actions where our mouths have been for years as we've come to church together and worshiped and listened to messages and just walking each day in trust in you, that you still have the whole world in your hands. But personally, for each of us, Lord, I pray that you would help us to contemplate this principle of the path, of the reality that in order to get to a certain place and have a certain experience we want to have, that we've got to be on the road that takes us there in all of life, and that means in our walk with you. And help us to be honest with ourselves and with you as to whether we've really been traveling down that road, or if we got caught up in all the cars coming at us and all the stress and everything else that comes with it, and we took a wrong turn and we got on a road that wasn't the one that we needed to be on, and we just kept going and we haven't worried about getting back to where we need to be. Help us in this least a month where we're still in this strange situation to not miss the opportunity to have some deep conversations with you and with ourselves and with those that care about us, so that when we finally do get moving back into society and into activity and the things going on, we won't just go back into normal, but truly beginning to live in a new, better, amazing normal that you provided for us. Thank you again for your mercies every morning that gives us a chance, no matter where we've been traveling, it gives us a chance to get on that right road. Give us the courage to do it. We continue to be so real to us that we just want to follow you every day. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you back here again next week. We'll be looking for an announcement or two and an email or two in this coming week. Talk to you later.